The Bob Graham round, a guided hike. Hi, my name's Ben, I'm a UK-based mountain leader and welcome to Summit and Beyond. So here's some of the things that I'm going to be covering in this video. What is the Bob Graham round? I'm going to look at why I decided to cover this as a guided walk, how I planned it, and then I'm going to look at each day that I was out. So we were out for 4 days and a morning. So I'm going to sort of break those down into the plan that I had for each day, what we actually did. Bob Graham round is a 66-mile loop and it takes in 42 of the Lake District peaks or summits. It also takes in over 8,000 metres of ascent. The loop officially starts in Keswick. It goes north, it goes through the Northern Fells and it loops all the way back around. It's split into 5 legs by the fell running community. The way this started was they had a challenge in the Lake District where it was how many peaks can you bag in 24 hours. So Bob Graham decided that he could do 42. The myth is, or the story is, that he did it on his 42nd birthday, set off at midnight after a few pints and just did the loop. I think the reality of it is a lot different. I've written a blog post on this in a bit more depth. If you want to read through things in a bit more detail, I'll leave a link in the description below. Some of the rules were you had to have somebody to witness you on every one of the 42 summits, and they would have had people scrutinising the time and the route, making sure that he did it correctly. So Bob Graham did it in something like 23 hours and however many minutes. So he did it in just under the 24 hours. It was around 66 miles and he did the 42 peaks. Fast forward to where Billy Bland went and did it in just over 13 hours. Nobody beat that time doing the Bob Graham round for like 30 odd years. Killian Jornet came over and he did it in like 12 hours, an hour less than Billy Bland, and it was 30 odd years since Billy Bland did it. So if you think, that's a long time for a record to be held. Why did I offer this as a guided walk? I've been following the Bob Graham events and people running it. I know a couple of people who've completed the round in under 24 hours, and it's always been something that I've seen as like this epic like achievement. And then I started to see people hiking it. I started to think, well, that's a really good route as a hike. I'd love to guide it one day. I'd love to hike it myself one day. Been doing a lot in the Lake District, and I thought, yeah, that'd be really cool. And then Mark came along and he sort of said he basically wanted a crash course in wild camping, navigation, and just to see if he had the mettle to sort of do a big long challenge. Because his plan was to go and do the Le Jog, which is Land's End to John O'Groats, as a hike, which he's currently doing right now. We originally were going to do this like earlier on in the year, however with the whole lockdown situation and everything, we put it back and to April, and then that weather window hit and I was like, this is the perfect time to do it. So I said, do you fancy the Bob Graham round? I gave him the details. He came back with a very enthusiastic yes. He then told me that he only had 4 days and a morning to do it. The plan. So when you look at the loop, the Bob Graham loop, there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either go clockwise around the loop or you can go anti-clockwise around the loop. Now, it officially starts in Keswick. Now, as I'm planning this, I'm thinking about where we're going to park. Mark's coming up on the train, so I'm going to pick him up from Carlisle train station. Then we've got one evening and then we start the round on the Monday morning. We've got to have Mark back at the train station for 4 o'clock on the Friday afternoon. We wanted to finish in the morning, head into Keswick, have some food, celebrate a little bit, maybe have a beer and then get the train back. We had 4 days and a morning, so I'm starting to look now at, do we go clockwise or anti-clockwise? So we went and parked up at Honister because the Bob Graham it comes off Grey Knots, goes straight down into Honister car park and then up the other side, up Dale Head. Keswick and Wasdale are the only 2 real places that you're going to be able to like there's a shop, you know, that you can stop and get something. The rest of the route is pretty much you're out there, you're wild until you finish. I then thought, well, if we go clockwise, we hit Keswick on day 1, which isn't really ideal. You kind of want to be hitting Keswick when you're tired. Then I started looking at the terrain, and I very quickly realised that clockwise is kind of like a very easy start, and then it's into the big fells. And I just thought, rather than doing it clockwise and having all the real big fells at the end of the trip that are going to slow us right down, and I don't know Mark very well, and I don't know his capability. I don't know if he's going to get all wobbly on steep ground. I don't know him. So the safer or the wise option would be to go anti-clockwise. On day 2, hit Scarfell Pie, start going over into the Langdales. If we got, for example, to Scarfell and it took us all day to get to the summit of Scarfell, then I would know that the round wasn't going to go. At that point I had like this plan B where I could change the route, because we're still within that area that's close to Honister. I can just alter the route, make it shorter and loop it back to the van, and we can put a real emphasis on wild camping, on the gear. I like refined, making his pack more efficient, and on the navigation, and I could put less emphasis on actually moving and hiking over the terrain and smashing out the challenge. That was my plan. It's allowing me to take into consideration Mark and his ability, terrain that we're going to be going over. It's keeping us close enough to the van in the first couple of days in case I need to get back to it. The issues with this plan are, we only had 4 days. The runners split it into 5 legs. So essentially I'm doing those legs backwards. At some point I needed to knit 2 of those legs together in order to make sure that we got back in time for Mark to get his train. So I knew at some point we were going to have to dig deep and move fast. If you want to see what kit I was taking and how I packed my food, how I approached my food, I'll leave a link at the top here, and you can go and watch that video. I think this is probably a good moment to cut in and just let you guys know that I've actually been sponsored for this video, and I'm super excited about it. The company that have sponsored me are called The Art of the Trek. Our friends at The Art of the Trek are working hard to research and add campsites, trailheads, water sources and scenic locations to their public map. The good news is that you can now add your own points of interest to the map and help your fellow adventurers plan their trips too. If you have a favourite campsite, trailhead, water source or scenic location that you'd like to share with others, head to artofthetrek.com, turn on some points of interest from the overlays menu and select the orange plus sign at the bottom of the screen to help fellow hikers plan the best trips possible. If you contribute at least a dozen or so of these, the team at Art of the Trek are happy to send you out a free swag bag. If you want to check them out, I've put the link to the website in the description below. Let's get back to the video. Day 1 of the Bob Graham Round guided hike. Day 1. The plan on day 1 was to get a good gauge of Mark, really. That's all I needed to do. You know, start hiking, do a bit of nav with him, just get to know him a little bit, and then, you know, start putting some distance between us and the van. The plan was to get to Wasdale, was to do that whole leg. So to get from Honister over Grey Knots, Brandreth, Green Gable, Great Gable, Kirkfell, Pillar, Steeple, Red Pike, Barrow, tick off the 9 summits and drop down into Wasdale, where we could set up camp for the night, or even better, we could replenish our water and start heading up Scarfell and camp somewhere high. We didn't set off hiking until 9:30. We've just arrived at Honister, parked the van up. There she is, and we're heading up Grey Knot, which is just here, and then on Friday we'll be coming down off Dale Head here after completing the loop of the Bob Graham Round. So at the minute I'm going to do, because the car park's flat, I'm going to do pacing with Mark. I was teaching nav, Mark was getting into his stride, getting used to his kit. I started to realise that this really was a crash course and I was going to be asking a lot of it. But I also realised that Mark was a really strong individual and he was willing to put himself through it and he wanted to learn. Mark did some great nav up off Grey Knots over to Brandreth, went on to Green Gable, took the nice steep walk up onto Great Gable, then we came down the west facing side of Great Gable.
The little dogs. The four dogs. Da, 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 da. Number four, Great Gable.
If you're going down Great Gable, don't come down straight down the west facing side of it, because there's Mark just finishing the skiing down the screen. If you're not used to going down Scree, don't go down there, just head back to Windy Gap and follow the trail to Kirkfell. We replenished the water, picked our way up onto Kirkfell, and then spent some time getting some amazing pictures. We saw the search and rescue out.
Mambo number 5, yeah!
After Pillar we dropped down, went over to Steeple, and then I started to notice Mark became noticeably sort of tired. He went quiet, so I started the whole how you doing, like how's the body feeling, and then start giving the options. Okay, so today we're planning to get to Wasdale. We've got another 2 summits to do, which is Red Pike and Yew Barrow, and then we drop down to Wasdale. Mark said that his ankle was hurting, so I then thought, okay, so his ankle's hurting. I'm like, usually I would want to camp up high, but I decided that because his ankle was hurting, we would go down closer to the water. And that also meant that in the morning when we woke up, if he was not in a good way, we can just drop down into the valley. We can miss out Red Pike, we can miss out Yew Barrow, we can just head straight from Scote Tarn, follow the re-entrant down and get down to Wasdale. So it was also a quicker way out of there. So we dropped down, we camped by Scote Tarn. It was freezing cold, a really cold night. We cut down off Red Pike and we were heading over to Yew Barrow, but we've decided to come down to the Tarn and camp for the night. I'm just replenishing the water, and then the tents are all set up and it's time to get some rest and eat. Day 2. Mark said that he felt better and he wanted to continue, so we head up onto Red Pike, awesome scramble up onto Yew Barrow.
We're going there next.
And then we dropped down into Wasdale, had some breakfast at the National Trust car park. I let Mark do some navigation at this point, and he decided that we should go up towards Mickledore. We went all the way up onto the top of Mickledore, just behind the stretcher box, and then I sort of said to Mark, like, we can either go down to Fox's Tarn and back up to Scarfell Summit, or we can do a really fun loop and go up Lord's Rake to the summit and then down to Fox's Tarn and back around. Mark was well up for doing Lord's Rake, so we took the essentials out of our bags, stashed the bags, and we plodded back down and then just went up Lord's Rake.
Awesome photograph.
Number 10. Ooh, that was not easy.
We hit Scarfell Summit and we dropped down and we found a nice little gully, and we scrambled down the gully, Came out the bottom, back up to the packs, did Scarfell Pike. At this point Mark was feeling strong. Broad Crag 12, Ill Crag 13, and then went over onto Great End, Peak 14, Esk Pike 15, Bill Fell.
I'm so happy.
16, went down to Angle Tarn. Now was the time to explain to Mark that if we now start to head over the Langdales and into the Helvellyn range, that we are going east. At Angle Tarn, we've got the option to pop back over to like Styhead Tarn, and then we're below Brandreth, we're below Green Gable, the van is not far away at all. It was that moment where I had to say to Mark, look, you know, we either alter the route now or we fully commit. Mark said, like, I'm doing it all. So I was like, okay, cool. When I got into my tent, did the planning for day 3. Okay, so if we can get over the Langdales in order to get us onto the Helvellyn range so we could camp up high, that's kind of what I was thinking we should do. But then I was sort of like gauging Mark, and I thought that I imagine that by the end of today, especially down that steep descent off Steel Fell, and if an injury is going to happen, it's going to be here. I think sticking close to Dunmail Rise or Glenriddin at the other side is a good option. So somewhere near Grisdale Tarn would be the best option to camp. Day 3, we set off. It was about 7 o'clock. As we started hiking up onto Rossett Pike, Mark said he needed to stretch out. So I took a few minutes, I went and sat and got the sun on my face. It was starting to warm up, it was beautiful. After about 10 minutes I thought, I'll say it's time to go. Mark wasn't there, so I shouted, thinking, oh, he's gone for a crap. There was no sign of him anywhere. And I sort of think, okay, he's not gone back up trail because I can see. The only way that he could have gone is either off the edge of the cliff or down trail. So I thought I'll follow the trail around the contours towards Piker's Stickle, and if I come across signs of him or see him, cool. If not, if I get round the other side and I don't see him, then I'll backtrack. I'll go back to Angle Tarn. If I still don't find him, then it's time to sort of like call it in. I set off hiking down the trail, and then just by chance I was like scanning the trail at the other side of the fell, and his Garmin inReach flashed in the sun. I caught up, said, like, if you're gonna hike off, yeah, you need to let me know. Mark was like, I'm sorry, but you know what? I navigated to here. There's a junction in the path, and I could have gone that way, and I couldn't see, like, the contours sort of disappear behind themselves, and I used my compass, and I'm on the right track, aren't I? And I was like, yeah, man, like, well done. So out of that moment of confusion and like, what's going on, came a really cool moment. We then went on to do Piker's Stickle.
Here we are at the Langdales.
Dropped down off Piker's Stickle, and then Mark said that he would appreciate it if we did a pack shakedown, so if I looked at what was in his pack and how he could pack it better. So we did a pack shakedown. We were there for about an hour. We packed up again. Mark's pack was looking a lot more efficient, and then we head up onto Harrison Stickle, met a lovely family up there, and then we did Thundercar Knots, High Rise, Sergeant Man, and then Calf Crag up the boggy, never-ending slope to Steel Fell, and then the killer descent came. The descent took quite a while. It took over an hour, and by the time we got to the bottom, I could see Mark. It took a lot out of Mark, and then it was time to go up Seat Sandal.
It's a bitch. I am still
He's still dancing.
fucking going. You're not gonna beat me. I am a machine.
Came down off Seat Sandal. I said to Mark we would drop the packs at the bottom of Fairfield, hike up without the packs, without the weight, then hike back down again, pick the packs up, and then go and carry on. Go up into the high fells. That's kind of what I wanted to do, but at the same time my plan was realistically we were going to stop somewhere near Grisdale town. Mark started questioning the route, how we were going to do the same again in one day and a couple of hours in the morning. And I explained to Mark that it is doable. Helvellyn Range is nice, it's a nice hike. You tick off a lot of peaks, you tick off a lot of miles. It gets gnarly in the northern fells, but then after that, once you drop back down into Keswick and you've got the Robinson, Hinesgarth and Dale Head, it's done. And at that point I sort of had to step into my leadership shoes and explain to him that he needed to follow. I explained to him we were in the perfect place to go and rest for the night, drop down to Dunmail Rise and grab a taxi back to the van, or we can get up in the morning, be hiking on the trail for 6 a.m. in the morning. We went and did Fairfield.
How are you feeling? But you're still smiling. Still more left in the tank.
Came back down. Mark came to me and said, I want to be on trail for 5, and he wanted to do it. And I was like, he's back in the game. The he wants to do it. So I was well happy with that. Had a sleep, quite cold. Day 4, up in the morning, we packed up. We got on the trail for 5:20. So props to Mark. He really worked at getting things put away. Started hiking, set off strong. We ascended up onto Dollywagon Pike, and then boom.
The sun is rising. It's almost religious.
But seeing the look on Mark's face when he realised, it's like he realised this is what it's about. And then we just flew across the Helvellyn Range. Dollywagon Pike, Nevermost Pike, Helvellyn, Lower Man, Whiteside, Rise of Die, Barrow Dodd, Watson Dodd, Great Dodd, Clough Head, dropped back down into the valley. Stopped at the Gill before heading up onto Holsfell Ridge, bathed our feet, had a coffee, had some food, just brought everything back down to a nice relaxed feeling. Got our packs on. At this point it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and then we hit Holsfell Ridge. Summited Blencathra, started descending Grisdale. We head down to the river, that long boggy descent. Luckily the river was very low, so it was just a quick paddle across and then to the foot of Great Carver. Up until now Mark was absolutely smashing it. We still had Great Carver to get up, which is quite steep, Skiddaw, and then that long trail back down into Keswick. Mark kept his head strong and he just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
3 to go. Oh my god.
4.
4 to go.
Yeah.
4 to go. Yeah. Legs are totally shot. One more summit to do tonight. And then walk into Keswick, so no problem.
Summited Great Carver, summited Skiddaw, had a view off the summit of Skiddaw. So we summited Skiddaw at 7:30 in the evening on day 4. And then we head down into the valley and into Keswick. My plan was potentially to get through Keswick and start heading up towards Robinson, because that would mean that in the morning then we could potentially get back to Honister for 9:30. If we got to Honister for 9:30, that would mean it took Mark exactly 4 days to hike the Bob Graham route. We got down into Keswick, and then we saw the pizzeria was open, and it was just like it lured us in. Mark very kindly treated me to a kebab, and he had one too, and we had a chocolate cake, we had 2 sodas, and then as that started digesting, obviously started getting cold. I was like, I want to get in bed. Mark was like, I just want to camp now. So we head off, and we didn't get set up till nearly midnight. We pitched, had a good night's sleep. Day 5, so we set off on trail just before 6 o'clock onto Robinson. As we were heading up onto Robinson, we dropped off to replenish water, and then I followed some trail carried on following a trail into the saddle. We had to quickly divert and zigzag up onto the top trail and then hit the summit of Robinson.
Day number 40. Only 2 to go.
After Robinson's, that long sweeping trail all the way up onto Hinesgarth, it was just before we hit this, like maybe 10 minutes before we hit the summit of Hinesgarth, I turned to Mark and said, it's officially day 5 now, so we'd hit the 9:30 mark and we were into day 5. We ticked off Hinesgarth. We're coming up to the final summit, summit 42, Dale Head, and then it's back down to the van at Honister. Mark is absolutely, he's crushing it, man. Like, I've picked the pace up this morning quite a bit, and he's keeping up just fine. So, well happy with that. We ticked off Dale Head, and by the time we ticked off Dale Head, it was just past 10 o'clock, and we ran all the way from the summit of Dale Head all the way down to the car park at Honister. And it was, I think this was the moment for me where we've been through the darkness, we've come out the other side, and then at the last push, I'm gunning it down this hill to try and get this guy in for in the quickest time we could possibly do. And I turn around and I look, and I just see him smiling and plodding down the hill, like running, moving really well. And I just thought, you know, my job's done. We hit Honister, had breakfast bun and a coffee, and I went into Keswick, and then I dropped Mark at the train station and off he went. The route, I think the route is, it's phenomenal, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who wants to get to know the Lake District. You get to see and feel the lay of the land. You get to see the lakes from every angle pretty much. Obviously you don't go right out to the outlying fells, but you can almost touch them. They're like right there. It's just the core of the Lake District, and it gives you a really good perspective. I would recommend doing it in 6 days. Make sure you're very efficient with your packing. Practice pitching your tent or your tarp. Practice replenishing your water. Figure out food. Food's a big one. You don't need luxuries, you just need the fuel to put in to get the energy back out. I think that is it. Thanks for watching this Bob Graham journey, and I will look forward to sharing some more adventures with you in a bit.